welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of several books, and of course, the latest book of his, The French Fiasco, no other than Mr. Cody Engdhal.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, everybody out there. It's great to be back.
Welcome back, Mr. Cody. And we love you on Book 101 Review. That's why you always welcome here to come back. So, can you please introduce more about yourself?
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Cody Engdhal, and I'm the author of 6 books. And just so you know, if I sound a little funny, have sounds like I have a speech impediment, I am recovering from tongue cancer. I went through chemotherapy and radiation, and my tongue is still kind of swollen from the effects. But I didn't want to wait any longer to come on the show. I couldn't speak for a while. But I wanted to come on the show and talk about, well, my new book. I'm very excited, and I'm excited here to be speaking to you, Daniel, and all you beautiful folks there around the world. So thanks for having me back.
Yes, indeed. This podcast is created for you, Mr. Cuddy, and thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. Thank you for being you. So tell us the French fiasco is all about.
Sure. Okay, so this is book 6 of my series called the Long Century series. But you don't have to read the previous books to understand this one, because every single book I write it as if you have not read the previous ones. So even though this, in a lot of ways, caps puts a cap on everything that has come before it, it's its own book as and can stand alone if it's the first book of mine you read. But now that I got that aside, so the story is about an American Civil War veteran who is currently in the Prussian army, and he's assigned to a hussar cavalry unit right on the Prussian French border. And for those of you that don't know, Germany used to be broken up into separate kingdoms, and Prussia was like one of the strongest ones in the 19th century. Eventually, Prussia will bring in all the other kingdoms and principalities and become the Germany that we know of as a single nation. But before the unification, Prussia was like one of the biggest of all the kingdoms, one of the strongest. And so this is right around 1870 in the summer, and right on the eve of the Franco-Prussian War. And our our main character, he's in the Prussian army, but some things happen. He does some things. He has a crisis of conscience that's going to put him on the run and send him running for his life deep into France as the war begins. There's a lot of big battle scenes. The Battle of Spicherin, the Battle of Sedan is in there. So there's a lot of action sequences. I always make sure that the battles and historical aspects of the novels are historically accurate, including like characters like Otto von Bismarck and Emperor Napoleon, Louis Napoleon III. This is not the famous Napoleon from the Napoleonic Wars. This is his nephew who became first president and then emperor of France became president of France in 1848 and then emperor, I believe, in 1852. So it's a fun book. It's I think French Fiasco is a perfect name because it's just chaos. Our character, the war doesn't go very well, especially for the French. Certainly doesn't go well for our character. But the interesting thing is that as he escapes deeper into France, he discovers he runs deeper into his own history and finds out things that I think will be surprising for the reader, especially if you've read through the whole series. But once again, I make sure that everything you need to know is in the book. So yeah, the French Fiasco. It's on. It's live on Amazon now. It's actually my best launch yet.
Congratulations, Mr. Cody, and hoping for more success. How did you balance historical accuracy with the compelling storytelling in the French Fiasco?
Yeah, that was not always easy. It was easy in the beginning because there were battles that were well documented from firsthand accounts and lots of great sources to help me tell the story of the Battle of Spicheren or tell the story of Sedan or Saarbrücken also is in there. But as the story progresses and we get away from the battlefield, it actually ends up in Marseille. And so I had to do a lot of digging about how Marseille is so far away from the war, but there were things going on. There was a workers' uprising in Marseille, and there wasn't as much readily available resources. So I had to really dig deep to really get the flavor of how that city was in 1870. And what was interesting is that I had written a book called Mexico, My Love, and if any of your readers or listeners out there have read it, it starts in Marseille, and there are some characters in that book that have come back to the French Fiasco. Well, a lot have had changed in Marseille from 1846, where the Mexico, My Love is, to 1870. So I had to reflect that not only am I writing about a city in its past, which is I can't do the math, but how far away 1870 was, but how different 1870 was from 1848 in that same city. But it was fun, I mean, I think one of the things about writing historical fiction, and I always try to make sure that the historical parts are accurate, so that you get a good story, a good fun, romantic swashbuckler from me, but you're also going to learn the real history of what happened. And so when I start off writing a book, I have a lot of foundational understanding of the history and how things were at the time, and um, but there's a lot of things that you don't know, you don't realize you don't know until you find out you don't know it. So as you're writing the book, there are times where like, oh, I need to find this out. Like, well, where were the train stations in Marseille? How would someone travel from, say, like the area that the Battle of Sedan is, which is in um, east northeastern part of France, to Marseille, which is in the southwest. So there's so many things that you don't realize you need to know when you go into one of these novels until you start writing it. And so there's a lot of um, just in time learning, and so the process of writing a historical novel, I learned so much through it. And as a fan of history, I actually really enjoy it. There's only so much research you can do beforehand, but there's a lot that still goes on as you're, you know, typing and actually fleshing out the book. So it's challenging, but it's fun. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I do it.
It's challenging indeed. Which character was the most challenging to write and why, Mr. Cody?
Oh, that's interesting. Who was the most challenging? I, a lot of the characters that in it are have come back from other novels, so I know them very well. I think that probably the Emperor Louis Napoleon. I wrote him, and I knew a lot about him, and I have some great sources. I had a great biography about his life, and I know about his history and his performance during the war. And not only that, but his son Lulu, who was also named Louis Napoleon, is 14 years old. And I I wasn't quite sure how I was going to characterize him, but I felt like as soon as I started writing, I felt his voice, not only the emperor's voice, but the prince, the crown prince. And I didn't realize how much of a father son dynamic I was going to write. And Napoleon, he was suffering from a lot of physical ailments during the time of the war. And so to incorporate that, the pain that he's trying to hide from people, because he went out, he wanted to be like his famous uncle. It felt like he needed to show strength. So he went out onto the front lines and tried to look like he was leading troops, all while he's agonizing over his health problems. And then his son is 14 years old, who is just beyond himself with excitement. I mean, he's at the boy is at Saarbrücken, or advancing on it, and he's finding like spent musket balls in the or spent bullets in the dirt, and he's so excited to show it to his father. So I don't know if it was challenging more as it was fun and surprising of finding the voice, and I felt like I did it very well. Another one is Otto von Bismarck, and he was in my previous book, and I have him in this one, and he doesn't play a big role, but there is a scene with him and the emperor, um, where they meet. Because little spoiler alert, the emperor was captured at Sedan, and they when the emperor is trying to, well, they meet and have breakfast together, and there's a famous painting of them sitting together outside of a little French cottage inn, and I love that painting, so I tried to put that painting, to tell the story of that painting in one of the chapters, to bring that painting alive. So there are challenges. Always there are challenges, but I find them exciting. Really, I think uh, there's so much that you don't know that you're even going to do until you start fleshing the book out. There's an outline. I know where it's going, but sometimes I don't realize how it's going to get there until I start digging in and doing the work.
Mr. Cody, how does your novel handle the human cause of war, both on and off the battlefield?
Yeah, there was a lot of things that went on uh, in the Franco-Prussian War. Of course, the Prussians did quite a job of mopping up the French very, very quickly. It didn't take them very long to get to Paris, and there are a lot of atrocities that happen, and it's really easy to pick good guys and bad guys uh, in a conflict, and certainly you can argue the politics of who was right and who was wrong. Um, the war was the French actually declared war on the Prussians, and had expected that they would be marching into Berlin, because they're one of the most powerful militaries in the world. But it was the Prussians. They were completely stunned by the efficiency of the Prussians, and there are some atrocities, but you can see both sides of things. For example, there is the partisans, the frontiers, who are civilians who picked up muskets and rifles, and fought against the Prussians. Well, ununiformed combatants are against the Geneva Code, and because the reason why is that the Prussians were trying really hard, especially in the beginning, of not disrupting the civilians. They were only there to fight the French army, but they have civilians firing upon them. So the Prussians were, and some people can call that murder, but at the same time, the Prussians were taking any man they found with a weapon in his hand in civilian clothes and putting him up against the wall without a trial or a jury, and shooting him. And so you have a lot of instances, and that got abused and got out of control. There's a lot of instances where that was abused, of course. Um, and I wrote to that, but at the same time, the French were doing things too. Like, for example, at the Battle of Sedan, uh, the battle first begins at a village that's just south of Sedan. And I'm not going to even try to pronounce the name of it. But there was a lot of vicious house to house urban combat going on, and because that a lot of houses caught on fire, the French civilians were coming out and dragging injured Prussian soldiers into burning buildings so that they would be burned to death. So war is an ugly thing, and in the end, regardless of who was right or wrong at the beginning of it, ugly things happen on both sides, and also has an effect on both sides, the combatants, the civilians, the people who are victims, and even the people who are um, perpetrators to some of these things. And I'll tell you this: the novel, a lot of the novel is about redemption, and the main character does some bad things, and he is a participant in some of these things, and so these are things that he has to deal with. In fact, several of the characters are dealing with uh, guilt, pent up guilt, and seeking some form of redemption. So um, I always really try to write. I write war novels and military novels, but I'm always trying to really get into the human element and the emotional part of it.
Mr. Cody, what is the misconception about this war you hope your book corrects?
The misconception of the Franco-Prussian War. Well, one of the things. Let's see here. I think that well, first of all, as I said before, I think it's a complex why the war even happened, and actually the reasons are ridiculous. And I think on the surface it looks like because we've been through World War II and World War I, that this looks like the big bad Prussians, and it wasn't just the Prussians; it was the North German Confederation. So you had Prussians and Bavarian, basically most of the German states that weren't Austria, um, teaming up to fight the French. I think it on the surface it looks like just another round of Germans beating up on the French. But you have to remember that the French Empire was extremely on the outside. Everybody predicted a French victory. So the French, it's complicated because the French are the ones who declared war on Prussia and were basically the aggressors. However, the French declared war without having a plan, without any preparation, without even troops in place. The Prussians, on the other hand, were ready to go. They've been designing and planning the war and building the railroads and the supply lines, all that for years, anticipating this. And so, what's complicated about it is that even though the French are the ones to declare war on the Prussians first and and plan on invading Prussia, um, they were goaded into that by the machinations of Otto von Bismarck. And why was that? Why did Otto von Bismarck and secretly the Prussians wanted the war? It's because they wanted to unite Germany as one nation, and there was all these separate kingdoms, and so they instead of conquering the other German-speaking kingdoms, and they did a little bit of that in the Austro-Prussian War, um, they realized that by having an exterior enemy, you got to remember that the French during Napoleon had conquered all of the Germanies, all the German states, all the kingdoms quite easily. So there was a lot of generational memory of the French occupying most of the German kingdoms. So by creating this threat to the West, that this would bring all the German states together under the Prussian flag to fight. And of course, in the end of the war, um, uh, King Koenig. A lot of people think Kaiser means king. Kaiser means emperor. So it's Koenig William the First, or King William the First, is crowned the first emperor of Germany at Versailles in January of 1871. He's proclaimed emperor, or the German word for emperor is Kaiser. So that's where you get Kaiser Wilhelm the First. So what's really interesting is that this war starts with the German states being, fighting together, but still separate entities. By the end of it, we're going to have the nation, the empire of Germany, which we will end up fighting in World War One. So a lot of this is one of the stepping stones that will lead us to World War One. And I always say, and I think most people agree with me, is that World War Two is the result of World War One. That World War Two is just an extension, and I think in the future we'll see both those conflicts as one big conflict. But a lot of that happens because of the Franco-Prussian War.
Very well said. An interesting novel, Mr. Cuddy, and thank you so much for sharing to the world. Before we wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Cuddy, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book 101 review in fifth season, comedy 101 in second season, Food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 and Love Letters are in third season. And my baby podcast, Mental Health 101. Movie 101 review and Music 101 in its fourth season. And Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. So please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Cody, if readers take away one thing from this book, what do you hope it is?
I guess the one thing to take away from it, well, I'll tell you, the one thing I want them to take away from it is I want them to be uh, entertained. I want them to say, "Wow, this was a fun, great book." But I also hope that you learn a few things. That there might be some things in there, even if you're an expert in the Franco-Prussian War. I think what's interesting in it is that most I've read several novels about the Franco-Prussian War. Almost all of them end up with the siege of Paris. I did something different. I Instead of going to Paris, we went to Marseille and talked about the uprising there that ties into the plot. So I guess the takeaway I want is a good time, and b a learning of some of the real history that's in the book.
Yes, indeed. People, let's support Mr. Cody Engdhal again. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank you.
your books to the world
Thank you.
and hoping for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Cody, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes. So right now I have six novels, and as I've said before, you don't have to read all the previous ones to enjoy the French Fiasco, but you might like them anyway. I am currently writing a novella that is going to be free and exclusive to my email list. So you can find that email list pretty easily. Just look for me on social media. I usually have it posted, or you can just send me a message and I'll send you the link. That will be free and exclusive to everybody on that list. It'll be an ebook. And then after that, I'm going to write a book called Black James. It's about a pirate that you probably have met if you've read Mexico My Love. And there's going to be so much more to come. So stick with me, people, because cancer didn't kill me, and so I have a lot more to write.
Yes, indeed. People, let's support Mr. Cody Engdhal because if you support him, as I said, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Cody, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Daniel, and thank you.
Marticon people, see you soon.